Welcome back to Step by Step, a podcast by Palmetto Conservatory of Dance. Our guest for today's episode is Brianna Taylor. She is owner and artistic director of Palmetto Conservatory of Dance, principal dancer with Columbia Classical Ballet, and founder of the Taylor Foundation for the Arts. So basically, everything that's in the arts world that she can contribute to, she has and she's doing. Welcome, Bri.
Thank you.
How are you today?
I'm doing good. The sun's out now. It was looking a little gloomy earlier today, but I'm good. How about you?
Good. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, like Antonia said, I'm principal dancer of Columbia Classical Ballet, and I am owner and operator, artistic director of Palmetto Conservatory of Dance. And yeah, that's you pretty much summed it up for me.
We've got a couple of questions today, some from our audience and some from the podcast. What has been one of the most rewarding moments for you in your career?
I would have to say just performing not only for myself, but for my peers, as I like to call our company, our team, performing for myself, for our team, and performing for others, and just bringing joy to other people. I think that is just the most rewarding, and not just joy, just pure raw emotion. And getting the feedback from our audience is just what we work so hard for. So I think that's probably the most rewarding for me.
That's awesome. You mentioned hard work. Is there a moment that you've said, wow, this moment of really hard work paid off?
Absolutely. I can actually give you an example. Last season, we did Swan Lake and we did Aladdin at the same time. And that was a lot of hard work because I was taking on the role of Odette and Odile in Swan Lake, and then I was also portraying the role of Jasmine in Aladdin. And I had someone come up to me and say there was one section in Aladdin where Jasmine is basically trying to trick Jafar into thinking that, she's been put under the spell and has fallen in love with him. And then Aladdin sees it. And so in that moment, Jasmine is, like, you have to understand why I was doing this. And so I really try to put myself in the situation of my characters that I play. And I had someone come up to me and say, I just wanted to cry in that moment. Your emotion just really touched my heart, and it was so relatable. So I guess that's a good example.
Wow, that's a great example. And you've mentioned two of the characters that you've done. Which one would you say is the character that has touched you the most, that has marked a journey in your professional career the most?
That's hard because I've done a lot of great roles. I've, Odette and Odile, and I've done Nakia, I've done Medora, and a lot of different roles. But I would have to say, not even a classical ballet. I would have to say Jasmine, that role I really resonate with, and it, helped me really grow artistically and just continue to mold into the dancer and artist that I want to continue to be and become as well.
I know you're going to laugh because you've done this so many times, but one of the characters that has marked me from your repertoire of principal characters is the Wicked Witch of the West from Wizard of Oz, which happens to be from the same choreographer that did Aladdin, Simone Cutna, which we hopefully will have very soon in the podcast. But I will say there's nobody, and when I say it, and I look at the camera when I say it, there's nobody like Brianna when it comes to the Wicked Witch of the West, because these are complex characters, and I've seen you prepare 3 times already for the role, and each time is just a different quality without losing the essence. Some dancers don't give themselves the credit of the study, and you are one of those dancers that likes to study. You read, you think, you put yourself in the shoes of the character, and that is very important.
It is.
I think I'm going to move on to the teacher side now.
Okay.
You've taught pretty much all ages in the school before it was even Palmetto Conservatory of Dance. What do you think is something that you'll carry on for all levels, something that you like all levels to know?
I would say something that has been very important to me is for them to be themselves, because I feel like as dancers, especially years ago, we were all expected to look like one person, and we were expected to dance like that person, and artistically be like that person. And I don't agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the reason that I have done so well in my career is because I have always unapologetically been who I am, and so that's something that's very important to me. And, what I stand for is for you to be your own dancer. Now, of course, technique is technique, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's one thing, but artistically, I want my students to grow into the artist that they want to become. So that's one.
Then we see it every day. That is so true. Is there anything though that you like to emphasize with the young dancers, with the little ones once they start?
I don't know. That's difficult. That's difficult.
It is difficult
because they're so young, and honestly, with the little ones, I mean, they're so pure and resilient,
Mm-hmm.
so they can learn so much so quickly. So that's like a whole different ball game with the younger ones.
Yeah, you're so right.
So it's hard because they still don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they know who they are. I don't want to say that because we have a lot of little ones with a lot of personality.
That is so true.
I don't want to say that they don't know who they are, because honestly, I think they know who they are more than I do sometimes. But, it is a little difficult. I think it's important that, they come in to the studio and see ballet as something joyful and something that they enjoy to do and love. I think that's what's most important for them at that age.
And that sounds absolutely right. And moving on to the qualities of a dancer. We've mentioned quite a few from the young dancers and the older ones, but is there anything that you think is key, is like a defining quality of a good dancer?
Technique. That our founder of this studio and our professional company, Columbia Classical Ballet, Radenko Pavlovich, that was something that was super important to him, which therefore is important to me as well. I mean, I started dancing with the company when I was 14.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would come in the morning and I would take technique class. I would do rehearsal. I would have a private with him, and then I'd have technique class again in the evening.
Wow.
So, yeah, so I think that is the most important and most crucial, as you are training. And I think that another thing that's, important to me, it kind of like you were saying, the quality,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just how you're doing the steps, it's the way you do them.
Mm-hmm.
And taking care of every movement or position that you make is what is most important. Of course, I think that having artistry is not taught enough in schools. And so that is something that is very important to me, especially when you get into like our pre-professional level. That is something that I want them to explore. But, you know, until then, it's mainly about the technique, because at the end of the day, you know, that's what's going to get you where you need to go if that's what you decide to do.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Radenko Pavlovich. I had the pleasure to dance for him, but also take classes with him, which was a different experience in a great way. What's your relationship with him? What do you think that marked your relationship personally with him as you grew up as a dancer, but also professionally?
So let me go a little bit back to the beginning.
As much as you want.
So our relationship actually starts out when I was probably 5 years old. I was actually dancing for another school, and my mom wanted me to be one of the mice in Columbia Classical Ballet's Nutcracker.
Aww.
And so at that point, you know, Radenko would hold auditions for every show that he did. And I auditioned. And, you know, of course, I was here for rehearsal one day. And for those of you who don't know Radenko, he drove this beautiful red Porsche. And we had finished rehearsal, and Radenko had walked outside. And I don't even remember what I had said to him. I was a pretty bold personality then, just as much as I am now.
I was about to say, yeah, that hasn't left.
Yeah, it hasn't. And, you know, my mom always says that Radenko walked out to her car, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to take your daughter out to lunch. Is that okay?" And next thing she knows, I'm sitting in the front seat of his red Porsche and driving away with him. I don't remember how I managed to do that, because the company dancers in Radenko would go and have lunch. So it started very early on. And then as I got older, Radenko saw me performing in Columbia, and he kept on trying to, you know, get my mom to bring me here. And then finally I came here, and he has really taught me everything I know with, you know, I've had a lot of mentors down the road. So, you know, of course it wasn't just him, but my foundation was him, technically, artistically. And, you know, he taught me everything I know about teaching. So on that side, you know, I'm forever grateful. Personally, he's like a dance dad to me. You know, he is in Serbia, but I still talk to him regularly, and he's such an important part of my life, and he has really changed and impacted my life for the better. So he and I have a great personal and, at the time, professional relationship as well.
We didn't mention that Brianna doesn't only do ballet. There's a long road of dance that has gotten her here. Tell us a little bit about all the styles of dance that you've performed so far.
So growing up, I did ballet, but also my parents wanted me to, you know, branch out and learn other styles of dance. So I did musical theater, I did tap, I did jazz, I did acro, I did, oh my gosh, what else did I do? I did all kinds of stuff. And I also shag as well. And also, even now as an adult, you know, I like to learn other styles of dance, bachata being one of them, which we're offering now at Palmetto Conservatory.
And I'll put the link, I'll have the link in this YouTube video for that, for you to sign in.
Yeah, and it's not just for kids, it's for adults too. So yeah, I have pretty much done it all except for hip hop. I never did hip hop, but everything else pretty much.
Nice. Is there any of those styles that you feel like you did very briefly? I mean, dance requires a lot of commitment, so sometimes we just have to choose between one and the other.
So actually, I grew up doing, I'm a little crazy. I was talking about this in our Palmetto Conservatory class this morning, how crazy I am. It's okay.
It's part of the personality. I will say there's no good dancer that is not a little bit crazy.
Well, it's like I told them, would you like to have a boring teacher?
At 9 a.m. in the morning on a Saturday? No.
Exactly. But I did my ballet training, and I somehow managed to do all of those other styles of dance until I was 17.
Wow.
I don't even know if you knew that.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
That's
So I would like.
Plus, mind you, we have to study. So she was still in school. It was all of that plus school.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I would Monday through Friday, sometimes Saturday, I would be here, and I would do my schoolwork, in between whenever I had a chance and when I got home. And then on Sundays, I would go to, it's called Broadway Bound Musical Theater Company, and Deidre Daniels Mount, she trained me. And I would go on Sundays from like 4 p.m. until like 8:30, 9 o'clock. And then I'd just do it all over again.
Wow.
Yeah.
So no day off. No days off.
Yeah. I loved it. But then
That's
it got
awesome.
to a point where, I had gotten promoted with the company, and so it was difficult for me to balance all of that. So it had to give. And so eventually I had to give it up. I think actually it might have been until I was 18 that I did all of that. So I might have been a little bit older than that.
Well, that explains where I'm going with this next question. You audition for the Rockettes, the Radio City Rockettes, and you take somebody, and I mean, I've met so many other dancers that have auditioned for the Rockettes, and they've all been well-rounded dancer. You can't just be forming one style of dance. How was that process?
Well, at that point in my life, it's kind of crazy actually. And Antonia asks me a question, and it always comes with a story. Of course it does. So we were talking about Rodenko and how he's like a dance dad to me. Well, as every daughter would do, I would rebel.
Very well.
And so I was just looking for something more. I had actually, before I went to the Rockettes, I had gotten an email from the Washington Ballet they wanted me to come and take some classes for a few days to see if I would be a good fit for the company. So, I was doing that, and I also was just kind of like, well, I don't think I want to do ballet anymore. And so I auditioned for the Rockettes, and the first time I auditioned was in Atlanta, and there was this girl that came up to me, and she had been auditioning for the Rockettes for 7 years, and she said, how many years have you been auditioning? I said, well, this is my first year. And she goes, first years never make it past the first round. And I was like, oh, okay.
Very nice of her. Of course.
Very nice,
For those of you who don't know, and sorry to interrupt
No,
your story
that's
briefly,
all right.
but the Rockettes, it's an institution that's millenary. They're Radio City, Rockefeller Center, New York City. Like, that is a process that takes years. And like you said, people audition 7, 10, and there's dancers that audition all their life and never make it. So this is why I want to hear this story. I'm sorry.
So I go into the audition. There are like at least over 200 people there.
Mhm.
And this is only the one in Atlanta.
Wow.
And I went, and it wasn't what I was expecting at all. I didn't really know what to expect, honestly. But I did make it past the first round. I made it to the second round, and they dismissed me. And I said, well, you know what? That woman told me that I would not make it past the first round. So I'm going to go and try again. So then I went to New York. My mom and I went to New York, and I went and auditioned in New York, right there at Radio City. And the line was extremely long. I mean, there were at least 600 people there.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and they don't even take that many people. They only hold auditions if, you know, they need to replace their dancers. And sometimes, and actually that's not true, because they do hold auditions every year. But I think they have like, it's kind of like ballet where they have like a second company and then
right.
first. So I went to New York, and I made it to the final round.
Wow.
And there were probably 10 to 12 girls left. And so I didn't make it, but they pulled me aside and they said, we want to offer you a full scholarship to the summer program. And the summer program was only 2 weeks, but they were like, we pull people out of the summer program directly to go into, you know, the Rockettes. And so that was my plan, you know, to go that next summer. And then COVID hit.
Oh my God.
And then the school was offered to me a year later. So.
Wow. Tell me about God's plans.
I know.
That's impressive. Do tell me, and I feel like this question hasn't gotten old since 2020. How do you feel like COVID affected your life? And I mean, as a whole, not even just professionally, just like the whole picture.
To be honest, it didn't really affect me. We were doing Giselle, and I was portraying the role of Mirta, and we were seeing all of the news and all of this crazy stuff on social media about COVID. You know, it was like hitting right as we were performing, and the Koger Center allowed us to do Giselle, but they were like, you guys have to get out immediately.
Wow.
And during Giselle, I had a stress fracture. So as everyone knows, I love to talk about my stress fracture. And so I was like, you know, this is great. I'll have time to heal and all of this stuff. And then the company returned in August or September. We had to take precautions, of course. You know, we all wore masks and we got tested regularly. But, you know, it didn't really affect the aspect of my life where my career, I guess. But I will say that year that we came back was difficult for me. You know, I felt very distanced from everyone. I didn't feel myself. And I think that that's really normal with everything that, you know, we were facing.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I bounced back. I mean, when we came back, I was helping Radenko with the school because, you know, his attention really was at that point more on the company. And so I helped him out a lot with the school. And then that next year, or that next season, the next ballet season, he offered me the school. So,
Mhm.
I think that, I think COVID was, in my opinion, not good, because it's never a good thing. But I
Right.
think that for me personally, it allowed me to just stop, like to pause and to take a breath.
Mhm.
And, my life would have been completely different if we didn't have COVID.
Mhm.
I could have, been with Washington Ballet, or, been a Rockette, and I wouldn't own the school. I wouldn't be dancing here and have the opportunities that I have here as well. So honestly, I'm glad that it happened. I mean, to a certain extent, you know what I'm saying?
And I get it. And you're not the first one that I hear. I feel like the world needed a stop.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just not other way to stop the world than a major pandemic. Because you're not the first person that I hear, and I include myself within that group. We just needed a minute to like not do what we were doing and collect ourselves and start again.
Yeah.
So I totally get where you're coming from.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think, and for those of you that don't know me very well, that are listening and they're like thinking this woman is crazy, which I am. No, but in all seriousness, I am the type of person that tries to find good in the bad, and I try to make the best out of a terrible situation or a terrible thing that's happening, to me, to my friends, to my family, to this world. I always try to find a plus side, because what's the point of being negative and being down and being upset? There's so much more to life. So that was a long rant. And that is normally how I am.
How I do it.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, with all of that to say, I don't even remember what the question was. So
I think we were just talking about COVID.
Oh, how it affected.
Yeah. But I will include in that. So you've gotten this major project, and you made what was Pavlovich Ballet School, Palmetto Conservatory of Dance. What are your plans? How do you see the school in the future?
Well, I've already made a lot of changes. I want to always give the school, my goal is more performance opportunities. That is why we train. That is why we do what we do, is to perform. And I think a lot of people, a lot of dancers lose sight of that sometimes.
Absolutely.
And so that is my biggest goal, is just to have more performance opportunities, more collaborations with our community. And that, I mean, all of that is in the works right now. And, definitely what Palmetto Conservatory's future will hold. But yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is making sure that they have performance experience. That was something that was given to me, or not given because I earned it, but Rodenko had me, in the company. And so I am only 25, but I've had experiences like a 30-something-year-old would. And so the more performances you have, the more experience you're going to get, and the more, it's live performance. So it's already nerve-wracking in itself, because as much as we prepare, we don't know what the outcome is going to be. And we just have to, roll with the punches of whatever may happen. If the you know, the music stops, or if something happens with the lights, or just us, you know, if something technically goes wrong,
Right.
how do we, you know, get out of this and make it look like it wasn't a mistake? Because to the human eye, we are not supposed to look human.
That's right. That's right.
And so I think what our future holds is a lot more performances, a lot more involvement in our community. And really, my goal is just, and I always say this to my students, you know, you're going to learn something here that you can take with you, regardless if you become a professional ballet dancer or if you become a lawyer. You know, you're going to take something from this and you're going to learn from it. But also, you know, just the future, I mean, it's crazy to think about. We were talking about that with my oldest group. I've had, because I've been teaching for Adenko since I was 16.
Right.
And you know, I had my little ones they're now my pre-professionals, and it's crazy to think about. But you know, and just making sure that, you know, all of my dancers that want to become professionals are just set up for success. I think that those are the most important things, and that's, you know, just doing more things in our community is what's in our near future. So
we'll be excited to see it for sure. All right, I could talk to you for hours, and that isn't a lie. But I want to close up with our step-by-step question. That is not only about what's your favorite dance step. It can be a ballet step, or it can be any other dance step.
Well, I can tell you which is my least favorite.
Oh, I know. Or you can mention more than one.
My favorite dance step. I don't know if this counts, but I love partnering. So yeah, I'd say like a good press is probably my favorite, because our lovely choreographer Simone, she always, this is like one of my favorite things that she always says. If you, in the dance world, if you are in love, you get lifted.
Oh, I had never heard that before.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's really good.
And so she's like, you know, if you're not in love, like there's no sense of you being lifted. If he doesn't love you, he's not going to lift you.
Oh, wow.
And so I just think that now that is like, oh, I feel loved when I'm being lifted. And so I would say, if you want like an actual step, I would have to say, I'd say, either a pirouette, a good pirouette, just a regular pirouette, or a grand allegro, not seesaw.
Not seesaw. I was waiting for you to say it. I was like, I'm not gonna say it, but
no, not that.
No seesaws in Brianna's world.
I'm not a big fan. But grand allegro, I do love grand allegro as well. So soda shas, entrelaces, grand pas de chas, those are my favorites.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for making it possible. And is there anything else that you would like to say to our audience?
Dream big, you know, go for it. I mean, don't let anything or anyone hold you back from becoming the best you, whether that has to do with ballet or it has to do with just life in general. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll see you next time. Another time.
Sounds good.